Dizzy Gillespie, one of the greatest innovators in American musical history. John Burks Gillespie was born October 21st, 1917 in Croshaw, South Carolina. His father worked as a bricklayer to support his 9 children, but in his spare time he played piano for a number of bands that traveled up and down the eastern seaboard. Growing up in a home filled with musical instruments, young John fell in love with music and dreamed of someday playing in a big time band. When John was 10 years old, his father died, and the youngster's grief drove him to become a troublemaker who constantly fights at school. Fortunately for him, a dedicated music teacher named Alice Wilson took an interest in him and convinced him to take up the trombone. By the time he was 13, John was playing both the trombone and the trumpet, was working hard to make himself a truly skilled musician. When Gillespie was 16, his mother moved the family north to Philadelphia in search for a better life. Gillespie soon found that he could earn money with his trumpet and decided to make music his career. Like most jazz musicians during the 30s, Gillespie's career began playing in swing music big bands. His idol was the leading jazz trumpeter of the day, Royal Eldridge. Eldridge was admired for his ability to play at great speed with unexpected swoops and turns, and Gillespie began to copy his style. He did it so well that the radio broadcast listeners would often could not tell which of the two trumpeters they were hearing. Because of his ability to play like Eldridge, Gillespie landed a job in Teddy Hill's band, which played regularly at the Savoy Ballroom in New York City's Harlem. During this time, he developed a flair for his outlandish outfits that often featured baggy suits, loud ties, wide brim hats or beret, and a long cigarette holder. He loved to wisecrack and play practical jokes on his fellow musicians. During the shows, he would often put his feet up on the music stand and perform other high spirited pranks. Legend has it that one of his fellow band members began to call him Dizzy, and the name stuck for the rest of his life. Climbing aside, Dizzy Gillespie could play. By the late 1930s, he was being included in the recording sessions of some of the finest musicians in jazz, including Coleman Hawkins, Lionel Hampton, and Ben Webster. When Gillespie joins Cab Calloway Band in 1939, he became into contact with musicians who were experimenting with new styles. The most important of them was saxophonist Charlie Parker, whom Gillespie met in Kansas City while on tour with the Calloway Band. Parker, Gillespie, and other musicians such as Theophilus Monk and a drummer named Kenny Clark would often get together and improvise that the faster and more inventive and more complex than the swing music played by the big bands. The turning point in Gillespie's career came when he lost his regular job after a fight with Calloway. Gillespie now found that he could make a living on his own. He soon began to play and record with the leading lights of the world of jazz. By 1945, when Charlie Parker had completed such now classics as Salt Peanuts, Coco, Billy's Bounce, Woody, and You, he was the forefront of the new jazz movement known as bebop, which was to remain dominant and influence on jazz for years to come. Gillespie always gave Parker full credit for his co-invention of bebop, but Parker was an unruly genius who often missed performances and recording dates, making it necessary for Gillespie to provide actual leadership and a stabilizing force. It was Gillespie who dealt with the record producers and the club owners, making sure that all the business arrangements were scrupulously carried out. Unlike Parker and many other musicians, Gillespie stayed away from drugs and alcohol and was careful with his money. He gave much of the credit for his level-headedness to his wife, Lorraine, a former dancer who he married in 1940 and lived happily with her for the rest of his life. In 1946, Gillespie created the Dizzy Gillespie Orchestra and once again changed the history of jazz. He reunited with two leading Cuban musicians, Mario Baza and drummer Chano Bozo, who brought the congo and the bongo drum into jazz for the first time. For this mix of black American bebop and Latin jazz rhythms came a new music known as African Cuban jazz. The numbers recorded by Gillespie Band, most notable was Mantia, Cuban B, Cuban Bop, exerted a lasting influence on the traditional jazz and Latin music. The hallmark of the bebop was a small combo, and Gillespie's greatest contribution in the eyes of many jazz fans were the remarkable quintet. Hear this, I'm going off script. Think about this. Oh my God, I wasn't born. I wish I was born. Think about this. I want you to hear this. He formed in 1946 Charlie Parker on sax, Bud Powell, Max Roach, and Ray Brown. I'm going to drop the mic. There's nothing else for me to say. But I want to go back with the Cuban thing. I was talking to Cucho Valdez when he was here for the Montreal Detroit, and his father Benito, just to see the Buena Vista Social Club and just the love of jazz, to see what Dizzy was doing back in the 40s was just incredible. I mean, as Charlie Mingus was with them, I mean, Massey Hall in Toronto, it's just so many things. The more I get into this jazz thing, the more I see I don't know, but I am an ambassador. I want this music to live. If you like this, please share this with the kids so they can know that this music was revolutionary. This music was something that we created. You know, it would be remiss if I wouldn't talk about the Honorable John Conyers, who pushed this thing out. And I think about Ed Love, a Detroit DJ. He does Destination Jazz to go all over. When I was in London, and Ronnie Scott's talking to some old heads there. But not just that, I was just thinking about Kenny Clark, the drummer. I have lost contact with his son. One of his kids live in Paris, France. And I can remember going to check those guys out at St. Jacques. It's a jazz club back in '89. I used to go there, and we was really, really cool. But you know how life, I think I got married, had kids, and just, I guess I fell off the scene. But anyway, this is Jazz 313. I don't want to bore you, but please share this music, share this content. It's not about money. It's about preserving the legacy of jazz. Thank you.